Welcome to Talent Blazers. My next guest has one of the biggest and most engaged HR communities worldwide. He's been in the recruitment industry for over 20 years, wearing many different hats as an agency recruiter, recruitment manager, internal head of talent, and recruitment trainer. He's the founder of an award-winning online recruitment platform, Kshaped.io, and is an editor and community builder at Recruitment Brainfood, the best weekly newsletter in recruitment. Hung Lee, welcome to Talent Blazers.
I'm delighted to be here. Hello, everybody. Thanks for inviting me on your show, David. This is a tremendous honor, man.
Well, thanks for joining. I'm really looking forward to this. We've got some juicy questions for you. But to set the scene, Recruitment Brainfood, unless you've been living under a rock, you should have heard of it. But for those who haven't, what is Recruitment Brainfood? What's it all about?
Forward, David. It's kind of an online community of HR and recruiting people. Started off really as a newsletter, but it's now turned into a podcast, a webinar. There's online spaces people can interact with. There's a job board now. There's all kinds of things we're doing. The main deal, though, is look, can we provide better information to busy recruiters who don't have the time to find the good stuff? There's lots of stuff out there. There's way too much information. What are the 5 to 10 things I need to know this week that's going to help me get better at my job? That's what Recruiting Brainfood is there to try and deliver. It's trying to give you those things, give you a bit of an edge, give you a bit of inspiration, and maybe give you a different angle on your job. Sometimes recruiting you can fall into it being quite mechanical. There can be moments where you think, wow, I'm just grinding through this. And yes, those are the moments when you need a bit of inspiration. You need, here's an example of somebody who's done this, but doing it slightly differently, new tool, new technique, new mindset. So that's what Recruiting Brainfood's all about, man.
Yeah, and you definitely do it well. Subscribe. You definitely should if you're not subscribed already, and check it out. The market's moving, as you just mentioned. It's forever changing. So you're pushing out insights quite regularly and very often. What is the scene like over in the UK at the moment?
I'm describing this as a K-shaped recovery, right? So do you remember like a year ago, there was like a really good, I don't know whether it's The Economist or something like that, but they started describing the economy in terms of letters. What kind of a recovery can we anticipate? And one of the weird ones that they actually pointed out was the K-shaped, and it was a K if the K was on its back. And I think that's where we're at in the UK, probably where we're at in most parts of the world, where certain parts of the economy, the growth has been like this. In other words, there's just almost like a pent up 2 years worth of growth packed into a single year. And I think that's where we're getting that spike. But then there's other industries that are still flatlining and still struggling, maybe terminally, because there's going to be some industries that are going to be completely changed by this pandemic. So I think it's important to recognize that it's not a universal situation for everybody. And every type of worker and every type of recruiter. But there's lots of people that we're speaking to right now that are on that growth path and are encountering growth challenges. Can't hire the people, can't find candidates, can't find recruiters to hire those candidates. So all of that points to, desperate candidate shortage.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on the employer branding space, because what we're seeing is the rise of employer branding. What is the market like for employer brand in the UK or even Europe as well?
You know what? It's huge. And it's huge, I think, for a number of related reasons, David. Firstly, the shift to remote has really damaged companies' ability to differentiate. Lots of times, especially elite companies that have high profile offices in expensive real estate, they could get away with having a cool office and say, hey, come and work for us. Here's where we're at.
Yeah, it's attractive.
That was an attractive spot. They could give you all these facilities, give you all of these perks, all really office-based perks. which were not insignificant, free lunches, free whatever. It's like, yeah, but you have to come in to do it. Now we're in a situation where lots of companies are at least on hybrid or they're moving fully remote. They can't really pitch that sort of a fixed asset as the big thing they go with. They have to talk really about their culture, the softer side of their business. How do people communicate? How do decisions made? How are rules maintained? What is the right behaviors that we promote? What are the wrong behaviors we mitigate against? That is often needs to be projected digitally and communicated digitally, and that's where things like video come into the fore. So there's no question, there's like a massive sort of surge of need to think, how do we communicate to an audience that can't really tell the difference between our brand and someone else's brand? You have to do it through video, you have to do it through rich media, and you have to tell the story of your company. So a big surge of this associated with this, and adding fuel to the fire, so to speak, is obviously we've all trained ourselves in the last 12 months to be very familiar with video. So it's no longer a weird...
The world's moved to video, there's no doubt about
100%.
that.
The entire planet has basically trained themselves how to shoot video, how to use video, how to do lighting, how to do all of that stuff. So now we expect it. I think 18 months or so ago, if you're a candidate and there's some employer branding video there, you might just think, oh, why would I click on this? Now it's like, oh, pretty obvious. You need to watch that. So there's no question, huge elevation for video, huge elevation for using video for employer branding.
Yeah. So you mentioned the market shift and the companies that have these glamorous offices. It's not so much a lure anymore for candidate attraction, and new stories have to be told. How are companies telling these stories? How are they communicating their value? And what are you seeing? And what are you also predicting more of?
I'm seeing a massive phase shift, and it's almost like a consensus has rolled across the industry now, where we recognize that something like an overproduced, marketing-led type of video is simply not going to land with an audience that doesn't care for it or doesn't trust that message. So institutional distrust, unfortunately, is at a very high level at this point, where people are doubting what they see, particularly if it's over polished. They think, okay, what are they hiding behind all of that video production? They want to see the real deal. So I think, generally speaking, most people understand this. I think it's more or less consensus view in the EB world, where, look, you have to show authenticity. You have to show it raw. You have to show the workers doing the job. So in other words, the content people really want to see is actually the people who are specifically doing the job in that department. If I'm an accountant joining this department, this finance department, I want to see what's happening in the finance department. I want to hear from the people who are my future colleagues there. So it's almost like
so not just the hiring managers. You want to see people who are actually doing the job.
The two people you want to see as a candidate is the hiring manager, because that person has direct kind of influence on your day-to-day, but also your future colleagues. And you want to see what the job is. What is that thing? Even if it's like difficult to communicate sometimes, because most of the time you might be staring into a screen and typing into a keyboard, it's still something, I think it provides a little bit of evidence as to what that job is, and kind of moves it one step away from abstraction. When you think about a text-based job ad, for instance, it's an abstraction of what's actually going on. It's a load of letters on a page saying, oh, you'll be doing these tasks. That's a very different weight of message compared to actually seeing someone at work doing that task. And ideally in the context, it's not in the studio. This person might actually be doing the job wherever they are. So that's the sort of info I think people really are hungry for.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because I think one of the things that recruiters get stuck on in-house, and staffing agencies always get tripped up on, they find it really difficult to communicate what it's really like to be working there. And the question's coming. If the candidate's in the interview and they have an opportunity to ask a question, or the first question, or if it's not the first, it's the second, who will I be working with, and what is the culture like? And I can really see a use case for the recruiter saying, well, I can tell you what it's like, but here's a few videos of people who are doing the job. And what sort of questions are quite popular? Like, what is there a particular company that comes to mind that is doing this well?
You know what? I don't want to give case studies because sometimes they can be intimidating, and sometimes you look at it and you think, oh, this is nuts. It doesn't quite work. The real message I think everyone has is, look, get inspiration from other companies, but bear in mind that you have your unique voice, and you have the way to tell the story. Again, the comfortable thing here is that everybody who is your employee, everyone who's working in your business, probably have a greater literacy with video production than you might imagine. In other words, we're all pretty good at it now. Compared to where we were 5 years ago, yes, you probably need a pro person to have a decent video. These days, everyone's got a really high quality camera on their mobile device. This is a really... Oh, good Lord. Is that me or you? That was
me, actually.
That was super loud. As soon as I raised that as well, I thought, crikey, did I just call my mom? I just spoke to her. I don't want another 20-minute conversation. But anyway, everyone's got like a super high quality phone, right? You can get that. Everyone has this device. And so their ability to shoot compelling footage is there. And that's what you've got to try and do as a recruiter, employer branding person. You've got to be the facilitator for getting your employees to do it.
And you might be able to find people internally who do have decent followings on social platforms. The rise of TikTok or Instagram. Socially, there's a lot of employees that do put themselves out there. What advice would you give to people who are searching for those ambassadors or those people within organizations to be able to rally them to be part of a pretty unique or special project to answer questions, I suppose?
You've made a really key point. Like the chances are a lot of your great ambassadors or your potential ambassadors are already making and producing video content or content of some type. They're already building an audience. You just got to find out who they are, because chances are they're not talking about your company right now. They've got their own hobbies, they've got their own interests, they've got their own thing. You just got to surface that up. You could do that by, you can ask them. I mean, that's like, go and do a pulse survey, go and like try and find out a little bit more about your people. One of the things the pandemic has shown us is that actually we didn't know enough about the people who were working in our businesses. There was, here's David. He turns up to work every Monday. He leaves every day at this hour and he disappears. Don't know what he's like. Don't know what he does, whatnot. That world's changed because, again, with distributed working, remote working, the barrier between professional and personal is completely porous now. Look at this session here. I'm looking at your lounge, it looks like. I can see stuff in the background. You're in my kitchen. That's a real intrusion, right? It's a real intimacy here, David. I hope you're as excited as I am about it.
I don't feel like you're intruding. You're welcome over to my house anytime you like.
But that's it. We've all become more comfortable about it, right? All of this is all cool. So we're starting to find out a little bit more about each other. So I think what needs to happen, if you're sitting there as a recruiter and you're thinking, wow, who are my ambassadors and whatnot, you could easily ask the question saying, hey, everybody, we're going to do we're going to just profile every employee is going to get a profile once a week, every week. We're going to create a blog about it. We're just going to find out more about you, go and write about it, interview them, and you'll find out, oh, I didn't realize this person did this or this person did that. And once you do find that out, you realize, oh, there's actually a lot of skills that the company is not tapping. So you're hiring Hung Lee is an accountant. Oh, great. He's brilliant as an accountant. You don't know, I might be also great at some other stuff that I do on my own, and I do anyway. And maybe I'd be happy to lend those skills to the company for purpose for a talent attraction.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like it plugs nicely into any DEI initiatives that you have, because effectively you're going to be showing a range of people telling various stories, and they'll be male and female, young, old.
That
and
actually,
potentially, is that what you're seeing? Like that attraction of minority groups into organizations?
yes and no. It's very much a two-edged sword, David, because it's one of those where if you already have a diverse organization, you've got a natural advantage because you can actually profile and highlight all of these folks. There's something called the Matthew effect, which basically is the idea that the more people sort of the rich get richer, so to speak. So the more diverse you are as a business, the more likely you are to attract different types of people because they're going to feel like, oh, I'm going to be welcome here, and you're going to be in a position of strength. Now, the reality is a lot of our companies are not particularly diverse for various reasons, historical reasons, industry reasons, whatever. And those are scenarios where, I can imagine a recruiter, an EB person, actually seeing that as a point of friction for them to do employee-generated content because they're thinking, oh my goodness, we're a bit too white here, or we're a bit too male here, and stuff like this can be difficult. However, there's some good examples of companies that have done this, where they've simply, they've not tried to present a false image. They've not tried to push the minority figures in their business as, as some sort of so-called blackwashing. Let's get them in front of cameras. The one black person you have in like a 5,000 person company, and suddenly they're all over the media. No, that's not the way you want to play it. The way in which you want to talk about it is to just describe where you're at as a business and with the journey you're on. There's nothing wrong with a bunch of people who have come from a majority demographic talking about, where they're at now and what the path that they're on and what the plan is. So that type of stuff is also, very relevant. And also, talking about this, oftentimes people just want to see people at work as well. So it may not be, that in itself is a great way to be inclusive when you show the work that's being done. Because again, a job description is opaque. The person needs to read it and then interpret what that job is, and then they're coming up with stereotypes, saying, didn't I realize that all fighter pilots are male or something? And that's their stereotype. They may not be aware that actually there's lots of female fighter pilots out there. So
yeah, or they might have some sort of affiliation with that brand, which is different to what's being projected as well.
Right.
Because of their past.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You can quickly change how people are feeling about your brand, and your brand is your people as well, and it's the environment that you're in.
That in itself is another reason to do it. Like if you have like a powerful consumer brand, a B2C brand, that's again a double-edged sword. Like people recognize the brand, but they then have a perception of that brand, which bleeds into the EB. So you might have, let's say, a famous institution, ANZ Bank or something like that. I've got an account with that bank. Of course I have. I had a terrible experience maybe. And then you suddenly think, that must be one of those terrible businesses to work with, etc., because of your consumer level experience with this thing. So it could be an impediment for those companies. But you do some employee generated content, it humanizes the brand, and suddenly you force the viewer to think of it in a different way, and you start recognizing, at the end of the day, all brands are organizations of human beings, and they're doing some interesting work. Maybe I can come in and help those people do that work. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Every company needs to really embrace it.
Nice one, Hung. Thanks for joining me on Talent Blazers. It's been fascinating. What I've learnt is that it is a tight market in the UK, and people are playing on culture, communicating the culture to hopefully entice more people to come and join their business, and they're doing that through the power of telling stories through video. It's really insightful. Thank you, Hung, again for joining us on Talent Blazers.
My pleasure joining you, David. Thanks for watching, everybody.